Bar Only the Mind by N. Cider. Cider was a good business, one that brought in lots of bits. All of it quality service. She was mighty proud of it, too. Friends told her about it, though she should start a whole business around it. And so here she was, in the building that Applebloom had fixed up for her in a jiffy. Fine job that her sister had done. Ain't seen anything like it. But who knew? It was almost time for her grand opening, and boy was she nervous. If cider season was anything to go by, she would soon be swamped. Of course, she made sure that they were well stocked with apple cider, all fresh squeezed, and all taste checked. Each barrel was then carefully sealed, just like Granny Smith did, and every apple before her. And then she felt it, that faint rumbling in the distance that reminded her of a great stampede. Nervous, that was the feeling, except dust. Dust streaming from the ceiling, right into her eyes, made her blink. Just what was going on outside there that shook the dust loose from the rafters? Quickly, she made her way right back up the stairs and down towards the windows. As she peered out, she saw a crowd lining up. It stretched back for miles and miles. Nah, just kidding. She woke up, gasping for breath, chest heaving at the image before her. She hadn't wanted to lie, but that kind of crowd she couldn't have served, especially since it wasn't cider season, so she had to check on the reserves just one last time. Throwing the covers quickly over to the side, she rushed down the stairs and out the barn towards the building that Applebloom had fixed up for her in a jiffy. She began to round the corner, a lone trail of sweat floating off of her into the distance, marking the way she had come for those who instinctively sought the cider. To her relief, it wasn't as bad as she had dreamed it to be. Pushing her way through the steadying throng of people who had apparently decided to camp outside the establishment, she reached the front door with one hoof, and then stopped. Turning around, Applejack discovered a pair of eyes staring expectantly at her. Then the pair doubled, and doubled again. Realization began to draw upon her. They were waiting for the grand opening. Once she had opened the floodgates, they would not be closed. So she gave the crowd one last eye before shoving the door open and screaming, "Yeehaw!" Her muscles tensed, and then she leapt, riding the wave of motion. Deftly, she landed in the booth she had constructed herself and tapped open the first barrel. The first cup was quickly filled and handed to the first customer already in line. One by one, the barrels rolled out and exhausted, and then she went back to sleep. And the next day, she wakes up and does the same thing, mindlessly filling cups until the onslaught of dusk. Correspondents start to realize it ain't easy getting into the bar, and sometimes that it's not worth it. Gradually, as days pass, the crowd thins out a little. She don't notice it though, not yet. She's just handing out the cups still. But she's getting better and faster. Much faster. It all starts to break down after a little while though. Soon there are lulls in her work. Lulls where she can listen in to the conversations and folks are having. Some of it is true. She knows that. Some of it ain't true. She knows that too. The only difference is she's the element of honesty. She wants to correct the lies, because to her, the lies just ain't soft, just white puffy lies, but monsters, threatening to gobble her up. But she doesn't, because to interrupt them would be rude, and a disservice to the Apple family name. After day, everything begins to fall apart around her. Colors once vibrant turn dull, and she begins to tell a few lies of her own, just to be friendly. What she eats doesn't taste as good anymore, and everything looks like it's about to collapse. That it's just tough. That's not just it though, because the conversation continues in the bustling tavern. Business is stable, and she begins to hear. As it gets less busy, and begins to zone out what's really going on around her. When everything's become so grey that she can't tell what's what from what. She can't tell what's what from what anymore. She collapses, and the world around her the blocks that have been carefully constructed to keep her from falling away. Then there's nothing she can do, because she too is falling so fast that she wonders what will become of her. All she can do is begin to pick up the pieces that stream down with her. Each piece reminds her of something. As she collects the pieces, she starts to slow, even if she doesn't realize it. Below her, the self-defense mechanism begins to form, constructed by the many pieces she has collected on instinct. It is a living thing, shifting, moving on its own. But it's not solid yet. She keeps on picking at pieces, and soon it materializes. When she comes to a full stop, the feeling of vertigo passes, and she tries sitting up, successfully too, by the looks of it. Her name, well, she's forgotten. It's lost in one of the many pieces that are floating around. She tries reaching for one, way off into the distance. In the end, she falls short, and begins to fall again. This time, she tries to look down, but before she can, everything turns black. She wakes up on an island again. It's smaller this time, and she gets a bad feeling. Not going to try and jump off again. Going to reach for the easiest ones this time. Once again, the island begins to grow, stretching out so she can reach new pieces. Then buildings begin to rise from the ground, one by one. Curious, she walks into one. It's back when she tried to buck Sweet Apple Acres all by herself. She shakes her head at how stubborn she was. She could have done it, though, if she hadn't tried helping her friend. All at once, her friends show, all looking angry. She begins to back off, all nervous-like. It's time to skedaddle, she thinks. But she can't find the door that she had entered through. The only way left is forward, so she charges right in. It takes a while, but she finally manages to wrestle her friends down. When she's done, a piece takes the place of the buildings, but it's much bigger. When she picks it up, the earth starts to rumble, and she's afraid it's all going to be for naught. But instead, she finds that the island is that much larger, and she remembers something too. She's hardworking, and to a fault. Her friends are waiting for her, so she's more determined than ever to get out of this strange world. The other buildings don't look that sturdy yet, but there's more pieces in reach, so she goes out and gets those first. Sure enough, the next building is ready. It looks mighty familiar, yet she can't place her hooves on it. She walks in, already prepared for the worst. After all, what could be worse than fighting with her friends? But then she sees Rainbow Dash and leaves, and realizes this is the first race he's cheated in. And then she tries to choke back the bile that's beginning to form. She knows what it is. A race. And so they run off, but Rainbow Dash ain't playing no more. Rainbow Dash wants to win. She can sense this, and things starts to fly at her. Yet she endures, and even begins to pull ahead. It will only take a little effort on her part to tie Rainbow Dash back, but she resists. And then she sees the finish line. It's the final stretch, and she really works it, her muscles. But Rainbow Dash is flying and crosses first. She wants to give up then, throw down the towel, that cheating, no good rotten Pegasus. But she crosses anyway. And then she realizes it wasn't the real finish line, because the piece there is waiting for her. She blinks again. Was it really so simple? But she takes the piece anyway. And the familiar rumbling is there. And the island is much bigger now. With hard work comes integrity, as she remembers all of the ponies. She's one with the integrity. If any pony's gonna get it done, what has to be done, she's gonna be that pony. Rinse and repeat. She's in the 4th room now. There she watches Discord. Each one of the gals is being tricked. It takes all of her effort to stop her from intervening, because she can't bear to watch and do nothing. It's part of the game she's playing, and she doesn't want to find out what happens if she doesn't play by the rules. Besides, it would be dishonest if she... But the insults from her friends, they almost break her. The ground begins to buckle, and she knows that the end is near, but she manages to stand. At first, she tries to ignore it, but then she realizes that what they're saying is true. It's not said nicely, but she learns to accept it. Every pony has faults, even if they don't want to admit it. Once she accepts, the whole building is gone, and there's the piece. She grabs it. There's one building left, and it's the bar, the one thing that started it all. She's a bit apprehensive, but starts to walk towards it. It's the last hurdle, and she can feel it. But she's the element of honesty, and she has friends, so she knows it'll be alright. They'll be there for her, even when everything's dark and grim, and she'll do anything. She'll do any task, because she has integrity. And most of all, she's going to make it out, because no matter what, she'll keep on trying. Then she enters. The monsters begin to converge on her, wave after wave. She defeats them all, as they try to swamp over her, trying to crush her any way they can, under hoof or otherwise. With a final buck, the last piece is revealed. Yet she doesn't take it right away. Like she's done with the others, but she waits a bit, to think about what she's learned. Then she's ready. With the last piece, everything's normal again, and the world begins to close around her. She blinks. It's back in the bar. Ponies lying left and right. Waiting there is a pony that wants the next cup of cider. So she obliges and hands over the mug. But instead of just letting go, she gives the pony a little tidbit. A truth to say. To fight back the tide of lies that go against her grain. Because even though she has to sit there and take it, sometimes, if her friends are there and everything's right, and even though she sometimes tries too hard, at the end of the day, she is Applejack, the element of honesty, who's proud to be an apple. Cider, she thinks. It would have been a fun start. It would have been fun to start a bar with the cider. Yet it wouldn't be right for her. So politely, before she takes on more than she can chew, as she has for so long, she declines her friends, especially Rainbow Dash. Even as they groan and awe and boo, she can see that it won't change who she is, or the fact that they are her friends. And they begin to part in the sunset, the day coming to an end. Before she goes down to sleep she smiles, because she's got the best friend a pony could hope for, because that day she's more than just learned a lesson. The end.